You talk about in the morning, your receptive mode. I've been trying it, and maybe not every day, but I try it as often as I think about it, and all I'm thinking about is, you better get ready for work. And, and I do it, so I constantly say, okay, I'm gonna do 1 minute, I'm gonna do 2 minutes, and I just try to sit there and I take slow, deep breaths.
Do you wake up to an alarm?
Yeah, about 4 of them. No, every half hour. Till I
You
get
keep
up.
snoozing it?
No, they just said. I don't even just snooze. 6:30, 6:15.
So what's the latest that you can get up and easily get ready for work?
I get to be to work at 6. The craziest thing is I got this thing about being early. As I gotten older. When I was younger, I used to rush and run out the door. Now I have to be calm. I don't do the rush. So the latest I can leave is probably 5:30, and be there at 6. But I got to get out the door by 5:15.
Well, we're just encouraging that you just set your alarm so that you wake up 10 minutes earlier than usual, so that you give yourself that 10 minutes to savor the new day.
I wake up an hour earlier.
And you're not savoring?
Probably I'm more than I think I am, but I just...
Well, in the moment that you're not savoring, get out of bed, because there's no point in lying there and worrying about anything.
Right.
So if you realize that you haven't accomplished it, then get out of bed. But we want to talk about why, because these are things that we know for sure. While you've been asleep, the momentum of your resistance has subsided. So unless you immediately jump with your mind to yesterday, that's the continuity that most people do, is they remember yesterday and then they drag yesterday kicking and screaming into today. And what you're wanting to do is let this be a new day where you feel a little different. So our friend was talking about how after she visited us with this like this, it was like she got a sort of jolt that caused her to feel different for a while. We would like you all to realize that that happens while you sleep. Because while you sleep, the analogy that we've offered most successfully for the longest time is the cork that's bobbing on the surface of the water. Let's call that alignment. Let's call that receptive mode. You can hold it under the water where you worry about stuff, but when you let go of it, it's going to bob back up. So if you're not deliberately dragging yesterday or last year or things that bother you into today, we think the analogy that we offered you today is a good one. Of when you're on the road, you really don't have too much difficulty staying in your lane. And when you wake up, you really don't have much difficulty staying in your lane. Just be aware that you want to. And that there's some tracks you don't want to go down. And there's some tracks that you do want to go down. Go down the tracks that you want to go down. Put some things in your mental pocket of things that always please you when you think about them. When we first had these conversations with Esther, Jerry and Esther just had constructed a tree house on the property. In fact, it was the first structure that was put on this property that now has many, many buildings. But this was the first one, and they put it there so that they could hang around there with the construction going on around in comfort. And so anytime Esther wanted to be sure that she stayed in the receptive mode, even though we weren't calling it that in those days, every time a surefire thing was for her to just think about that treehouse, think about the men who built it, think about how they turned into little boys as they built it, think about how it took 3 months longer than it should have because they didn't ever want it to be finished. Thinking about the different experiences that she had had in the treehouse, thinking about her experience with the cat in the treehouse, and the day that she was talking to a friend who was doing some transcribing for her, and it was before they were sending sound bits through the computers. That's how far back it was. And her friend said, "What are you doing today?" And Esther emailed back, "It's Thanksgiving. I'm going to cook dinner just for Jerry and I, and then we're going to go to the treehouse and take a nap." And her friend wrote back and said, "I wish I could send you the sound file for this." And before even reading further, Esther heard in her mind the rockin' robin all night long. She hears it in her mind. So Jerry and Esther had Thanksgiving dinner, went to the treehouse, laid out on these beautiful beds that they had put into the treehouse, took a nap, and when they woke up, the wind was blowing the treehouse. It's on 35-foot pole. Then they were in the upper level. The treehouse was rocking, and the trees were full of robins. The trees were full of robins. Well, All Esther has to do is just remember that moment in time, the surprise and the delight of it. In other words, you can't not feel good. And there's so many things. Kate was just little. She's 14 now. Kate was just little in those days. Any thought of Kate just held Esther right there. And there were endless things to think about her. Her face, her nose, her hair, her kisses, her voice, her happiness. In other words, there are so many things
That puts you in receptive mode.
that hold you there, and that's what you're wanting to accomplish. You just want that momentum to get going a little bit today. Now, you might get out of bed and you might lose it before you even get into the kitchen. That's okay. You got there, and tomorrow you'll stay there longer, and the next day you'll stay there longer, and the next day you'll stay there longer, until you have this keen awareness of where you are in relationship to it.
Right, you're saying in the morning, I'm talking about in the morning, but I kind of get it when I'm working. I work on a assembly line, and I do affirmations, and I do everything's working out. I'm just saying to myself while I'm building cars, all these great affirmations, and I feel so elated.
Perfect.
And
Well, then,
I'm like, well, I'm supposed to get it in the morning. But
you must be having it in the morning. That's momentum. In other words, if you're feeling it under those conditions, you've figured this out.
And I guess I don't even realize it, because when I'm not getting it in the morning, I do know this. I say thank you. I say thank you, and I start thinking all the things I appreciate about my wonderful little life.
Are you willing to say to us, or are you ready to say to us, or did you already say to us that sometimes a little negative emotion is helpful because it makes you realize how often you're in positive emotion?
Yeah, I don't like it though. But yes, you're right. But I don't like negativity. So you're right, and that was part of my other questions.
So now where are you? In other words, what is your question?
You kept saying about this morning receptivity, and I'm like, well, I want it in the morning, because you're saying you're more receptive in the morning, but I don't feel as receptive in the morning as I do
Well,
in the
that's
midday.
a really good sign, because that means you're getting out of bed on the right vibrational foot, and it's just getting better and better and better for you. And if you're feeling good, really good under those conditions, under those methodical conditions, that is really, 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 really good. That's the receptive mode. And don't you find yourself intuitive? Don't you find yourself moving with deftness? Don't you find yourself good at it? Don't you find yourself refreshed? Don't you find yourself renewed and refueled?
While working.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't say it's crazy, but it's different. Yes.
This is an interesting question. I want to get into the receptive mode first thing in the morning, and so we go through an hour of discussion about it, and then you say, well, I must have already been in the receptive mode, because by the time I get to work, it's really revved up in a really big way. That's really the point of this whole discussion. This is really the point of getting in the receptive mode, because when you're in the receptive mode, life just gets better and 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 better, better and better and better and better, better,
Love,
better.
peace, joy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've said before to other people that I feel like I've lived a life of an 80-year-old because I've done so much in my life.
Well, that's
And
what the
I've-
richness of alignment is about. That's what we're talking about. The tapestry is just more. More things converging all at one time, and your ability to perceive them gives you that sense of timelessness. Yes.
Yeah, I even tell people that I don't age because I feel like that's a choice.
Yeah.
And when they find out how old I am, they're like, oh my God, are you, so I've done so much in careers and just experiences and lived in so many different countries, and I've just done a lot. But there's so much more that I know I'm supposed to do and that I'm doing. I don't think that I need to choose which one to start with. So there's more properties I'm supposed to get. There's a book I'm doing. There's so much, and I'm excited about all of it, and all of it is my passion. So how do I make it all make sense?
You don't have to make it make sense. You just get in the receptive mode, and it will make sense of itself. Because you made sense of it as you put it into the vortex, some of it before you even came into this physical body. You're making sense of it as you're sifting through life. So this asking is what is making sense of it, and the source energy that stands there and has become it. So all you've got to do is live your gift. All you've got to do is get into the receptive mode.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good.